Sounds good.
Welcome, golfers, to the next episode of the Read It, Roll It, Hole It podcast. Today we have got Travis Fulton on the call. Welcome. How are you?
Yeah. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Very well, thank you. It's really good to have you on the show. Your podcast, the Stripe Show podcast. I'm a big fan. Really enjoying it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's going well. We had a good year last year, and we're excited about this season, and covering all different angles of the game and 4 days a week. So yeah, I appreciate you listening in.
I was going to ask you actually that it seems like you post every bloody day. How do you do that?
Well, the vision of it is to have that daily podcast that covers really, all different angles of the game. Monday is a little more of a reaction to the tournament that was over the weekend, storylines, things like that. We have Matt Janella coming on this week, Monday, talk all things golf, kind of overarching topics. And then Tuesday, we look ahead, right? So it's that gambling angle on breaking down the next week's tournament. Wednesday is your tour player sit down interviews. We get a lot of them that are on site, give us some insight to what the tournament's going to be playing like. And then Thursday's instruction. So it's kind of the only podcast that covers really this whole range of the game. And we feel like we're on something there.
Yeah, totally agree. It's good content. The one that caught my eye was Beat the Bookies one last week. It's like, what was the, I didn't get a chance to listen to that one. What's the 30-second or no, you probably should say I should go and listen to it, right? But I was going to say, what's the secret to the sauce to win?
Well, beating the bookies, he's a professional gambler, so he's a hell of a lot better at that than I am. And it's just it's a cool angle to come at the next week tournament of how handicappers are breaking it down. I tend to bring a little more of the golf centric background, although I like to gamble too and get into that. So it's, you kind of get more of that golf centric background with the true gambler handicap background. And it's an interesting conversation. So I was traveling to PGA West last week for the tournament and had some flight issues. So I was like, hey, you're hosting, turn the camera on, off you go. And he did a good job. So yeah, he's a trip, and he's really good at what he does. Nice.
And Brett McCabe did one as well. He's a cool cat. He's a friend of the show. He was on here a few minutes ago.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, he's one of the best in the business.
Knows his onions. What he doesn't know isn't worth knowing, right?
He knows a lot. He's coming at it from a different angle, and I wanted him to go back and listen to just his position on mental health on the PGA Tour and just overall. And so it was really well done. So Dr. Brett McCabe's part of my team. Shaheen Nakjavani, who is a teacher, is part of my team, and we have some others. So we're excited about how that aspect of the podcast is growing.
Awesome, good stuff. So in your spare time, then, when you're not doing podcasts, you do a bit of instruction. Mm-hmm. You've been an instructor for many years, sort of one of the leading instructors in the US and the world, perhaps. You're in the top 40 in under 40 a few years ago.
Yeah, those were the days. I'm ready to go back. Those were fun to be under 40. Being 44 now, unfortunately, I guess I could say I'm in the top 44 of under 44, right?
Yeah, absolutely. always be in some sort of category. Yeah. But no, obviously you've been on the Golf Channel. You worked on the Morning Drive for years. You've done a lot of writing for Golf Digest. Can you give myself and the listeners a bit of an insight onto that journey? Really, just interested to hear, the journey from turning pro to you've been everywhere, man.
Yeah, I've kind of went about it a little different way. I as I look back, for some reason, as a lot of the teachers were going one way, I was, for whatever reason, going the other way. Like when we were running PGA Tour Academy at TPC Sawgrass, of course, there's a lot of players there, and I was running the academies, and we had about 26 teachers, and when you're there and you have all the players in the back of the tee, a lot of the staff would go hang back there because that was their aspiration, was to work with tour players. And a lot of them still do to this day, and they're great at it. For me, I was like, I don't know if I'm really wired that way. I was more like on the business side, learning the business side, running the academies, and was really more interested in the TV side. So I kind of went that way and started to do some TV back in 2000 and probably 13, 14. PGA Tour Live was launched. I was doing some stuff for them. And then when there was an opportunity with Golf Channel, I went down and auditioned and got it and started to go to work for them on a couple of different shows. And that was really cool. And it was something that I can remember when I did the audition and I got done, I texted my wife and I was saying, this is what I want to do. This kind of energy is what I'm made for. Like I feel like my voice and what my message and being able to articulate a lot of different things in a way that would, I think, come across on TV. I felt like that was in my wheelhouse. That was a skill set of mine. So I really pursued it and got better at it and did it for the better part of 5 years. And after that, now I've just decided to do my own platforms, which are doing well, but still doing some stuff for, Golf Channel and the PGA Tour, and very much a partner of theirs, but kind of more of an entrepreneur approach with me and Travis Fulton Golf, Stripe Show podcast, but still having a hand in some of the other stuff. So yeah, it's been a journey, and it's been one that, live television, I'll tell you, you sink or swim. So it taught me a lot.
I bet. How do you deal with that live television nerves, if you like? Similar to the first tee, is it, or not?
Well, yeah, yeah, it is. There are some similarities, like live television is different than taped television. When it's live, it's a whole nother level of urgency and now. And, I don't think I necessarily got nervous in the aspect of being on live TV. I think the hardest part, at least for me, is listening, and that's listening to your producer in your ear, but also listening to the person that's in front of you, and also listening to what you're saying. So there's a lot of things that are happening, and just the idea of listening in the moment of live television, I think, is the most exhausting and at least for me, the hardest thing to do. And then I think in addition to that, to be able to speak, in bite-sized points, right? And being able to get your point across in 30 seconds and not continue on like a podcast. Live television's on a podcast. You're in and out, at least in morning drive in the day, where there's a lot of things going on. So it was probably the greatest experience in my life to really be able to listen and really be able to formulate my thoughts in quick moments, right? And get in and get out, be conversational, be entertaining, all the things that I think hopefully are boding well for me now as I've ventured off in my own stuff.
Absolutely. What was your highlight, or what's the funniest moment? Can you recall something you said that slipped the tongue?
There's a lot. I hit a lot of bad shots on TV. That's for sure. There's nothing more nerve-wracking than the moment. Huh?
What was the worst shot you hit?
Well, I hooked a couple left on 18 playing TPC Sawgrass. Robert Damon and I were trying to demonstrate. He blew one way right. I hooked one left. I was like, let me try it again. Another one in the water. Like, you know what? I think I'm good. Those are probably the most nerve-wracking moments. That moment when you're talking and you're like, okay, here we go. So we're going to go ahead and give this a shot. And then it's silence.
Yeah.
And that silence is deafening. It just goes right through your body, because it's you. Time to hit a shot. So those were probably the most nerve-wracking moments. There's so many, just funny moments that happened and that catch you off guard. And I can remember, Damon Hack asked me a question one time and I didn't hear it. And that's part of the listening, right? Like there was a conversation being had. I think the producer was in my ear and we were all sitting there, and Damon turned to me and he asked me a question and I wasn't even looking at him. I'm just like over here. And then I look over and he's looking at me, and he knew that I didn't hear it. So he repositioned it. That's the pro that he is, and just kind of smoothed it over. So, but those moments where you're like, oh no, I didn't hear what he said, like your heart just starts going. And yeah, there's a lot of just little scenarios. Like, I'll tell you one more story real quick.
Story.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So I got to interview a lot of players, and we're on at 7 a.m. and Lexi Thompson was supposed to be there at, I think, 7:20 in the morning. Okay. So I'm down in the simulator. I'm waiting for her. She's not there yet. She was running a little late. And so she gets there, and the producer's like, does she have her mic on yet? And I'm like, well, she's not quite with me yet. Well, we're coming to you in 30 seconds. I'm like, oh, right. So she finally gets, she's got her mic on. She's, getting her driver. And we're like, literally, like, they come, she's like, ready to go. I mean, like right on the second.
Yeah.
Well, she hadn't hit a shot yet. She hadn't even taken a swing yet. 7:20 in the morning. And so we get into, hey, Lexi, hey, to welcome in, And so we're like, she's showing me a few things, and my producer's like, have her hit one. I'm like, I don't want to have her hit one. She hasn't taken a swing yet. And she's got her driver in her hand. I'm like, all right. I'm like, Lexi, you mind? Give us a shot? She's like, sure. And she stepped up, and I am not kidding you, full blast, like she'd been hitting balls for an hour.
Wow.
Whew, right down the middle. I mean, ripped it. I was like, whoa, I'm the only one that knows she hadn't taken a swing yet. Like, sure. That's impressive. Like, that's a pro.
That is impressive, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, you see them all warming up for hours beforehand. And
I mean, she didn't baby the swing. She just unleashed it. I was like, damn, 280 out there. And then they usually like to have us hit a shot. I'm like, please don't make me hit a shot. Please. Yeah. I mean, it was impressive. There was a lot of moments like that where these players, just putting around. I remember when Terrell Hatton was in there one time. I mean, he made like 40 in a row from 6 feet. I'm just like, this is silly.
Really?
Oh yeah. And just little things like that happen that you're just reminded how great they are, just how great of a golfer they are, their skill.
Yeah. No, that's cool. What's the biggest thing you've learned from a player's interview? Something, I don't know, words of wisdom that they've shared with you that sticks in your mind?
I think the thing that I'm reminded of is as far as we've come in the instruction world with being able to measure things, technology, and as much as it's really helped us, right? Sure. As a teacher for me, like I remember, like 2D video I still use, but like, launch monitors are very helpful. This idea of 3D video, which tells us a lot of cool stuff, these measurement systems and putting, like there's a lot of good data, right? But I think at the end of the day, like when you interview players at that skill, it's still this ability to just play instinctive golf, right? And like there's a genius that is in with every one of these players and their ability to play instinctive golf in play. And I think most of them, although the launch monitor has become, in being able to hit shots and see your carry distance, right? Like that, they want to see that. And when I was at Palm Springs, it was amazing. Like they would hit a shot and look at the launch monitor to see how far it went. So they're like inundated with these launch monitors. It makes it very simple. And they know exactly how far they're hitting the shot, right? But I think outside of that, yeah, sure. Some of them will go under the hood with some 3D, but most all of that is for the teacher. Like at the end of the day, these players keep it very simple, and they want it watered down. They want it bite-sized. They want it attainable. And I think if you can create this environment where, if you're trying to make incremental change and let this genius come out still and play instinctive golf, I think that at the end of the day is still the most important thing, and not getting them so watered down and inundated with all of this technology that's available to them. As good as it is, I think I'm reminded when I talk to them, like, I'm kind of just a little bit of this. Okay. Like Kramer Hickok, I was talking to him on the range last week.
Yeah. And
he's like, all I think about is just trying to shake someone's hand right here. That's it.
Really?
All right. Yeah. Like what else is happening? I don't know. Like
Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And
over in the UK, I've seen like Lee Westwood be with Nick Doherty doing it on live at the Open, you know, and he's asked him to hit a fade, and then that's easy for him, and to hit a draw. How do you hit a draw? And he was, you know, stumbling. He doesn't actually know how he hits a draw. He just, well, Westwood sort of struggles, but I think DJ's been the same, you know, on those sort of calls that they don't actually know how they do it. They just do it, which would you say that's what makes them so good?
Well, I think it's what allows the skill to be maximized. I think they're, you know, like to be playing at that level, to be playing any level, you can't be overthinking it. There, you know, and that's kind of the hard part from the instruction side, is to be able to make change, be able to develop skill, and yet still be able to get them to be instinctive and transfer that out to the golf course, right? Like that's, at the end of the day, in particular at the professional level, that's the most important thing. There's not a lot of heavy lifting changing going on in professional golf. Bryson DeChambeau was major change. Like that was big change. You don't see that a lot. And it's really interesting, and it's impressive to see him come out on the other end, right, and win the US Open. But that kind of change doesn't happen that often, you know? And so I think with that said, it's incremental. It's this long-term approach that has its ups and downs and ebbs and flows. And, you know, there's no perfect scenario. I think that's the most interesting thing when you look at player coach, and we're talking at the highest level. There's no perfect scenario for a coach to say, here's what we're going to do. It's A, it's B, it's C. Let's go. If you do that, you're going to win a tournament. No, it doesn't work that way. Because what happens is you do A, and then the player pushes back. Like, I don't know, it feels weird. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to do that right now. And then all of a sudden the conversation goes somewhere else. And as a coach, you're trying to pull it back to what you think should be happening, right?
Yeah.
And you're dealing with a player that has ideas and beliefs, and they have the genius, and they know what they do is good enough. So it's like, you've got work to do, and the player has an opinion, they push back. And that's the hard part. Because the game's so damn hard too, right? And so there's no perfect formula to that marriage. And I think with all this information that's out there and all these specialists, it's easy for other players to try to, hey, I'm going to go see what he has to say. I'm going to go see what he has to say. I'm going to go, you know, and then pretty soon there's just too much shit going on. Like you just can't, you don't know where you are. You're lost. And that happens a lot.
Yeah. I think it happens a lot with the amateur game as well. Do you think, like, obviously with, you know, YouTube, I think there's a lot of good content out there, you know, especially your channel. We better say that, Travis. Do you know what I mean? But there's a lot of good stuff out there, but there's so much stuff. Like they could watch, you know, 100 videos on how the left wrist works in the golf swing, and then they're all trying the different way, and they overthink it, isn't it? It's a fine line between instruction, and then the sort of top players are over. They're not thinking about anything. They're just hitting a golf ball and finding it again.
Right. Yeah. It's like, how much does a player have to think? Right. And I think when you're a player who doesn't have a lot of skill and you have a lot to learn, I think there's some thinking to do. Like there's some learning to do. Right.
Yeah.
At that level, it's different. They have so much skill that you have to be very cautious as you go in and you start probing and doing things. When you have a 20 handicap, they need to be listening, you know? And I think, yes, the most important thing I think for them to be able to do is find someone that they like and be able to kind of interact with and have a bit of a game plan. There's no question. Like that is the most functional thing to do. Someone to show up on my range, I look at it, I analyze it, and now my job is to say, we're going to work on A, B, and C. And I'm going to put that in the right order for you, because that order is going to improve the probability of impact for you. And as you improve the probability of impact, you can start developing more skill. And that's the way we should do it. But that's not the reality of the world. And 85% of golfers don't do that. Like they're not going to show up on your lesson tee, and they're not going to take an online lesson from you. They're just not going to do it. Time, kids, pets, commitments, work,
podcasts.
We go down the list, right? I've been living in this world for 22 years. And it's what spurred me on to develop training programs. training programs that have context, training programs that have a start, a middle, and an end. There's an order. You go through it, and you come out on the other side, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm driving the ball better. I can now hit a draw. I can now hit a spinning wedge. I can now putt better. Like, so taking segments and doing training programs like an online class, I think is the way of the future. And I tested them last year and did very well with them. And now we're moving them onto our new website, which launches this week, travisfultongolf.com. And there's 5 training programs that people can get into. They're inexpensive. They have context. You can do them at your own pace. I think that's where we can really start moving the needle for the 85% that are just not going to show up on your lesson tee. They're just not going to do it. But
Totally.
But they're the ones watching YouTube, right? So it's just surfing, and it's good info, some of it, but there's no context. And I think the training programs at least gives them context. It at least says, look, here's the segment. Start here, in here, right? The most popular training program is Operation Baby Draw. That's the most popular. Yeah, because a lot of slicers, a lot of steep play, right? So it's Operation Baby Draw takes them through how to swing shallower and draw it.
Nice.
And yeah, so it's been a really, really good program. Total Driving is the other one, taking him through the driver. So it's been fun to watch. It really has. And I'm really anxious this season to see if we can continue to grow it, because I think there's a huge market for it.
Totally agree. That's great. And they're on your website, those programs. So if the listeners liking what you're saying there, they can go out and check it out and have a look at them.
Yeah. So it launches real quick. Today's the 20th. It'll launch on the 27th.
Perfect.
January 27th, travisfultongolf.com. Go check it out. Instruction bundle, online training programs. They're inexpensive. I get great feedback from them. So check it out.
Brilliant. That's great. With the training programs, obviously with the times of the world with COVID the last couple of years, is that something that has developed through COVID, that doing online, you've realized you can do more than perhaps you thought before? I'm saying that because I, as a coach, have experienced that I can work with players a lot more online than I thought perhaps before possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've been going down this path for a while. I think COVID just jetpacked it more, Yeah. I think it just, if you were out in front and then with COVID, like you've done pretty well with this stuff and online training programs, but also online lessons, right? People being able to video and work with something through their phone, through an app. And so, yeah, I think the silver lining of COVID has been golf. I mean, golf has benefited because you can go outdoor and play. And so we've seen here, at least in Florida, a lot of people coming back to the sport. Golf courses are much busier. People are hitting balls. And then, yeah, I think people are taking more online lessons too. So I think there's just a little bit more of everything happening in golf, which I think in some ways is the silver lining of this whole COVID pandemic.
Totally. It's a wonderful game, this game, golf, isn't it?
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. What do you think makes it so special or unique to other sports? Not other sports, but just, other life maybe. Why is it so special?
Well, I mean, it's you. I mean, you have to make it happen. There's no reliance on any team member. You can have a team that can help you, but at the end of the day, it's the player hitting the shot. Yeah. So it's a very individual, independent sport. And I think when you start with that, it just becomes a little bit more mental, I think, at that point, because it's just you, right?
Sure.
And I think the closer you get to the hole, for some, the more difficult it gets. And then for others, it's the other way around, right? So like there's this wide range of skill and shots that you have to learn how to hit. So it's very challenging, from that aspect. And that doesn't even factor in then the elements of being outside and the weather and the hazards and the lie and all the things that you have to learn how to deal with. So there's it's a very challenging sport, I guess, is where I was going with that. But yeah, I mean, I think the the independency of the sport is what really, I think, separates it. And I think with that said, there's a lot of parallels and analogies to life that you can learn through golf. And that run parallel to one's personality in life. So yeah, it's been a wonderful sport to be associated with. And I think the other thing that just makes it what it is you can do it with everybody. You know, you can go out and play with anybody. I can go out and play with my 7-year-old son, and I can go play with my wife. And then I can go play with a 4 handicap. I can play with a 15 handicap. I can play with a 25 handicap. And I'll finish with this with the sport. What I like the most about it is that golf now it can mean different things to different people. I think like for a long time, golf was like, okay, you have to go play 18 holes and, you know, a tire and like all that. And that's all important and has value and they're still there. But I think now like golf can mean different things, like Top Golf. I can go hit balls and have a few beers and listen to music. I don't have to be good. I can wear jeans there and roll it off and still make it. Right. There's golf now that's played, 9 holes. We have a 12-hole course right down the road here. So like golf can be just truly entertainment. It can be beers with the boys. It can be go listen to some tunes, have a cigar. It can mean tournament golf. It can mean a membership. It can mean a lot of different things. And I think that's important that we keep that horizon expanding with the sport.
Totally. I think where it really sort of grabs you by the, I don't want to be rude then, but balls. It is what you've said there is how the life skills it teaches you, and how, it is a personal thing, isn't it? You are out there on your own, and it's just you and your demons, if you like, in your head. Mm-hmm. What life skills you mentioned that golf can help with life skills? What would you say are the main ones that are linked?
I think just adaptability, like being able to adapt to a lot of different situations. There's going to be some, there's going to be some good, there's going to be some bad, there's going to be some success, there's going to be some failure. And I think just going through all that and learning from that and adapting to that, I think is first and foremost. I think the second thing is it's introduced me to a lot of different people too. And I think as the sport has grown, as I was just mentioning, into a lot of different arenas, like I think being able to exist and be able to relate to all kinds of people, right? I think that's something that's really benefited me from, is that, okay, you can go to a country club and there's specific rules there, but I like those experiences and those people and learning from them and all that. And then there's, being in that environment, and then there's going to Top Golf and being in that environment and being comfortable and relating and talking and all those things. And then going to play a par 3 course right down the road. And, so there's just so many different angles and people that are coming at you. And I think, being able to adapt and being able to understand and relate with all of that is huge, and what it teaches you in everyday life, because everybody's coming at this from different angles and in different ways. And so I think the sports really helped me from that standpoint. But then just, patience, right? Like the idea of patience in golf is a pillar, because you've got to be patient with the sport, whether you're playing it, teaching it, running a golf course. I mean, it teaches you how to take a step back, look at things from different point of views, and have some patience with what you're trying to do. Accomplish.
Love it.
Right. And accomplish. Because, look, man, at the end of the day, you're going to fail at the sport. If you're not failing, then you're probably not pushing yourself enough. And if you're just always winning, then it's like you're not, what I'm saying? You're not pushing yourself enough.
Totally.
So you got to learn how to deal with that failure. And through some of that failure, I think is a big part of patience and finding your way through this sport of golf.
Totally agree. And it is a sport that even the best athletes in the world, that they'll only win like 15-20% of the time, right? So I think Tiger's win rates around there, which is very different to other sports, isn't it? Where, Rafa
Yeah.
Nadal probably is in 90%, or the All Blacks, or I'm sure there's some great football teams over your part of the pond, but your side of the pond.
Right.
Yeah, but there's some nice skills there. I like that. The having the ability to change, that's massive, isn't it? I think, thinking of players, Spieth and Thomas, they're very good at dealing, or not dealing, but yeah, dealing when they're not on their A game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have the ability to grind it out.
Right.
So resilience and patience, they're lovely words that you've said there. So that's
Right.
good.
I think those are good examples. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's just so we are a putting podcast. Let's talk a little bit about putting for a few minutes. Is that okay? You all right for time?
Yeah.
I just saw on your YouTube channel, you're talking about Ben Hogan Golf, and you've done some sort of studies with putters. Is that something you're still involved with and you can expand on?
No, I didn't do any stuff with them on that. Actually with PXG now, this year, who's gotten very much in line with putting and coming out with some of their own putters as they've expanded now their horizon in that. But I think putting for me is very much part of what I do. I probably don't post as much about it as I do some of the other things. But it's, what's that?
Why is that?
Yeah, I was just thinking to myself, why is that, right? Because it usually does fine. It usually does very well. I think back to one of the segments that I did, about the grip and just getting people to kind of get their forearms more in line with the putter shaft and not the right hand, the lower hand so dominant on top where the right forearm gets so high, and just the simplicity of getting the forearms to match up better to the putter shaft, more on a single plane, and the elbows kind of rolled in a little bit, like just the simplicity of that and how, well received it was, right? Because it was this common mistake, and it was like, well, okay, now I line it up, and all of a sudden now the putter head wants to move on a better arc, and off they go. So yeah, I guess I should video more of my stuff, or I should post a lot more stuff about putting. And I've kind of been waiting a little bit until some of these programs come out.
That sounds good. Sounds good. With your the players that you've watched, you've been to many events, etc. The best putters in the world. What have you learned from them, or have you? What do they do so well compared to your average golfer?
Well, I mean, they hit the center of the face, right? First and foremost. And I think they hit the center of the face. They get the ball to start online, and obviously their speed, and they do it all better. I think the one thing that I've noticed, and I think about how I can say something here that would really resonate and perhaps someone could learn from. I think the idea of what I see, and there's different variations in putting. We know, like, there's different ways to putt, just like there's different ways to swing. Not everybody in the full swing has their left wrist flex. Some of them have extended.
Sure.
In putting, when I watch, I see a lot more now of the backstroke, maybe a little longer, and the forward stroke a little shorter. And there's more of this 2-to-1 aspect ratio, a little longer back, shorter throw. And I did a clinic one time, and I said, look, in putting, do you want to take it back, let's say short, like I say 1-to-2, where it's a little ways back, longer through, or do we want to take it back longer back, shorter through? Now, we know there's examples on both sides, right? We know there's examples on both sides. But what I'm tending to see more of is a little longer back, shorter through. And everyone in the audience would say probably, oh, they take it back. They accelerate through. So it's longer through. I would say like 100% of the people would raise their hand there.
Totally.
But the reality is you look at like Spieth and Cantlay and Sam Burns and these guys, it's a little longer back, shorter through. So with that said, So with that said, when you commit to that, the pacing of the putter head has to pick up a little bit going back. There's a little more pace going back, and then it's a little more cruise control coming through because you've got pace and frame built in going back. Now you can let it cruise to the finish, shorter finish, versus if I take it back really short and really slow, then I got to hit the gas. I got to accelerate more. So I think when I watch, I'm seeing a little more 2-to-1, a little more pacing going back. But with that said, there's still the 1-to-2 ratio. And I'll tell you, to bring it full circle here back to Golf Channel, this was back in 2017 when Spieth was on his tear, making everything. The dude was putting to the ocean, right? I mean, it was incredible.
Unbelievable.
And Spieth is the best example of longer back, shorter throw. And he takes it back quick. His putter head moves back with some speed.
Sure.
So I was explaining why that is, the 2-to-1 cruise control, whatever, and got a lot of feedback. Well, later that show, Lydia Ko was in. And Lydia Ko, I had to interview her, and I asked her, and Lydia Ko is a wonderful putter, right? In fact, at the time, she was the number 1 putter on the LPGA Tour that year. I asked her, I said,
opposite to Spieth, though.
Opposite. And I just started cracking up, and she's looking at me like, what are you laughing for? Because there's always the other side. You can't say there's one way to do it, right?
Sure.
And so I broke down this whole Spieth thing, and then Ko comes in and just starts shooting bullets through it and saying, I do it the other way. but Spieth was the best putter on the PGA Tour, and Lydia was the best putter on the LPGA Tour. And there you have it.
So interesting.
Yeah.
I think as a concept for the average golfer, that you'd sort of encourage more towards Spieth than Lydia. I certainly do in my coaching preferences there. But she certainly knows how to control that flat stick and stop the ball where she wants to. So
right.
Yeah, fair play.
Kevin Knopp, good putter, lengthens out the finish, so it's, you just can't, there's not one way, there just isn't. And I think you got to take a step back and ask yourself, okay, why is that effective? Don't just, I teach this way. Like you got to hang your hat on something, right? You have to hang your hat on something and put it out there, but you also have to listen, acknowledge, why is that? What are they doing? Okay. I understand that. Now, when maybe that student shows up and they don't want to change that. So you have to work around that.
Definitely. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is, I say to players that I don't want you to look good. I'm going to make you be good. And
right.
There's not always a one sort of system that fits all, really. And that's what they're saying, which is cool. Just conscious of your time, but I just want to ask you, on your podcast, it's been going for how many years now?
We're just over a year old, full time, and we started it probably 2, but we didn't do much. I'd say we're just over a year old now. Yeah. Stripe Show podcast.
Who's your favorite guest, and why were they the coolest, and what did they say that sticks with you every day?
Boy, there's a lot there, but I think Chris Kirk, when he came back from his alcoholism and depression, I asked him to come on. He was playing in the Corn Ferry Tour that week down here at King and Burgess, and he was great. Like, just the authenticity of a great player coming back, 4-time winner, acknowledged his demons and the things that were ruining his life, and how he went about putting the pieces back together and where he is now. Just the transparency, the authenticity of that was really powerful. And that was about a year ago. And you see him now, he's back on the PGA Tour. And so I think that was one that really hits home, for me, and did for so many that kind of thanked me for doing something like that. But there's been so many. The instruction ones are the most probably listened to. People love the X's and O's of, I had Drew Steckel on, and we were breaking down Jason Kokrak's swing and Kevin Noss swing, and had the swings up in the video. And, so those are always, people love those when you're talking about what they do. I mean, the discussion around the skill of a PGA Tour player is one of the most popular topics. So when you put those on, they tend to do really well. But Chris Kirk was probably certainly one of my favorites.
Love it. What did it what resonated so much for his story with you?
Well, I think just the idea of, battling back, and he had a lot of depression. I think, for me, I tend to struggle with depression a little bit as well. And I think as he got into talking about that and dealing with that, that was something that kind of hits home for me. And I've been very outspoken about it as well. And we had a lot of people who came to that and listened to that and talk. And, a lot of people struggle with substance abuse and alcohol, drugs, whatever. I don't, but for Chris, alcohol was taking over his life. So I think a lot of people came to it for that. And then you had, his why he was drinking was more based around his anxiety and depression and all those things that were coming with tour life. So I think the coping of depression and how he works with anxiety and those kinds of things, which I deal with, and being able to do that in a very healthy way and then spread that word, really certainly resonated with me and resonated with a lot of people, and how to be more open about that and handle it the right way, whether it's talking to somebody, it's there's some medication, but diet and fitness and all these things where you got to change your lifestyle to just be better mentally, right? Which makes you feel better, obviously you feel better physically, but that mental aspect of being in a clear state of mind where you can handle the demons that you have. And for him, he handled it through alcohol. So it was just the whole thing was like, anxiety and depression in today's world is, if you don't think somebody that has it, trust me, you do. Like it's out there. This pandemic hasn't been good for that. That's why I had Dr. McCabe come on, talk about it. So it's a major thing, I think, in the world today.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And thank you for your honesty there.
Yeah.
With sharing it. I think the more we speak about our mental health and our good days and our bad days, I think that we're gonna all benefit by helping each other in that way.
Absolutely. There's no question. Yeah, you got to be open about it. That's the bottom line. I mean, the more you leave it in, the harder it is. But you got to be open about it. And then you got to learn what makes you tick. And for me now, like I know what kind of makes me where I need to be, the recipe for me and going through this. Now it's up to me to make sure that I stay on that track and have a good supporting system to help me with that. But yeah, the mental health side and anxiety and depression, man, it's I think it's unfortunately out there more than it ever has been, considering the challenges that we have in this world right now. I mean, it's Twitter.
Yeah.
There's some good stuff in Twitter, but for the most part, it's probably not great for you. This consumption of all this information and things that are out there and how easy it is to get to it. And, this COVID and the division, at least in our country, of, politics. I mean, there's a lot to take in there, and then you put your own personal stuff with kids and work, and it's a lot to take in. And I think then you add on COVID, wow, now you got a lot there. So, life's full of challenges. But I think in today's world more than ever, I think just the transparency and getting out in front with anxiety and depression, boy, it's a big thing, I think.
Totally. Can you share with us what your sort of coping strategies that have worked for you to help you with that anxiety and depression?
Well,
what that is?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you just have to be I think for me, it's just being always the honest assessment. My wife knows me so well that I always say to her, I couldn't keep something from you if I tried, because she knows me so well. And I think for me, it all starts with diet and fitness. I think when I am 100% on board with my fitness and my diet, and I'm doing that's just gets me moving in the right direction. And then obviously going through what works from your medication standpoint. There's a lot of different things out there. And I think you have to go through that to find what works for you, and then balancing that with, for me, the most important thing is the fitness and the diet. And if I'm doing that, And for me, my coping, and I talk to my psychologist once a month, good or bad. It's a good conversation, something to look forward to. It's been very helpful for me. But as soon as I slip on that fitness side is when I feel like then it's harder for me to really kind of get out in front. Like the medication for me, like keeps you in a good spot, but then the fitness and the diet and the transparency and the discussion is what then moves me ahead,
Nice.
That's what moves you forward and ahead where you feel like, okay, now we're off we go. And we're whipping its ass. Like we're in a good spot, but as soon as you lose that, then you come down and then the medication just kind of keeps you, it doesn't let you fall so much. Like it keeps you there. At least it does for me. And then it's okay. Now I got to move this up through what I need to be doing. And that's kind of how I look at it. And it's work.
Healthy body, healthy mind.
Yeah. Right.
Happy days.
Yeah. Just a good old sweat does wonders for the mind. Just a great sweat for me. 45 minutes.
Try that one day.
Not for everybody though. Everybody's body's different, right? That may not be for them, but that's just what I felt.
Works for Travis. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Brilliant. Okay, Travis, love that conversation. So just share we've talked about the online platforms. Remind us of your website, podcast. You got to go and check that out, especially that Brett McCabe one, especially if that mental health conversation there at the end has sort of triggered something in your mind. That's a great podcast to listen to also. So please fire away.
Yeah, go to travisfultongolf.com. Like I said, new membership, new website launched here in a few days. And then you can go to my Instagram at Travis Fulton Golf. That I have everything there as well. So those are the two platforms. Love to have them. Check out the new training programs that launch here on Thursday.
Awesome, great stuff. Thank you very much for
coming
on to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.